Ladies and gentlemen, it's time. It is finally time to do the review of this beautiful ass bike right here, all right? The testing has been done from the cameras to the microphone that I'm using right now. Does it sound good? How do we sound? Speaking of the cameras, we're using the Ace Pro at this current moment, and now we're done testing with this goddamn bike. It's finally time to chat about it. We stop wasting time and get into it, because this is what y'all here for. So there's three topics I want to talk about. The first one being, what can this bike do? Starting off with range, Gear 1 tested on an average speed of about 45 to 50, sometimes 53, 55, but on average 45 to 50 miles per hour. We reached a whopping 74.80 miles. So pretty much we hit 75 miles, Gear 1, with an average speed of 45 to 50. So keeping up with traffic, not driving too slow, not slowing up traffic, not having to drive what's now obviously an entire motorcycle and a goddamn bicycle lane, because I can only do 25 miles per hour and look at those miles. No, we were keeping up with traffic and still achieved 75 miles. But what's the speed? We got a full-size bike now. Does it have full-size bike speed? How fast is it? To be honest, that's to be continued, if it can ever be continued. So let me just say it like this, for at least the returning viewers, any returning subscribers, and you've seen the original bobber, the Project SB, you would know that I did my top speeds on that, and it was a bit of a struggle. I was able to do it, but it was a bit of a struggle because it was the biggest bike I've ever had. Well, now that's kind of the same with this. So let me just say it like this. I was able to hit 96 miles per hour.
The craziest part that I didn't pay attention to is the fact that we hit 96 when I let off the throttle. It had so much power that it free rolled it to 96.
But I struggled to go any faster. I'm just, either because this is the biggest bike I've ever had, so those speeds, 70, 80, 90, is the fastest I've ever gone on two wheels, or I am just simply not the type of guy to hop up on some crazy ass sports bike and try to do 160, 180, 200 miles per hour like a lot of these crazy ass dudes out there. But not a single time was I fully on the throttle. And that's the craziest part. Definitely on like more than half. I'm on it by a lot, but not fully. And when I am on it fully, I can hear the power difference change and I can still feel so much pull. Y'all good, y'all good. Go ahead. I need a break. I need to chill down real quick. Shit! I personally just think that I am not the speed demon type of guy. I just don't think that's me.
Now don't get me wrong, the bike itself is perfectly fine. It didn't speed wobble, not once. It didn't feel like anything was going to break down. It didn't feel like it was going to blow up. The bike is ultra sturdy. It's just the power that this bike has, and the best way I can explain that is, I've done 78 miles per hour on this bike before, and it felt like normal cruising speed. I kind of didn't realize I was doing 78. But that was in Gear 2, and Gear 2 is set to 50% battery amps and 50% phase amps, so it's only half the power. Therefore, I think the full power at Gear 3, everything at 100%, is just that much that the amount of pull this bike still had when I was at about 85 to 90 miles per hour, I just couldn't handle it.
To have your mind go wild, the reason I got this drivetrain is because I saw someone in a Facebook page, they posted a clip, they're at a drag strip. Now, mind you, their bike was a lot lighter than mine. Okay, my bike might be damn near double the weight of theirs. Theirs was a lot lighter, thinner, lighter wheels. If I'm correct, they said the bike was 260. They were at a drag strip. They had plenty of grip, nice straight flat road. They were able to do 125 in 10 seconds. Keep that in mind. And also, for how I feel about what my bike can possibly do with this drivetrain, let me say it like this. This is the best way I can put it. I would be surprised if my bike couldn't do 100 to 105, at least 100 to 105. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if my bike could do 110 to 115 plus, okay? So I'm gonna just let your mind run crazy with that one. But that's the short topic on what this bike can do. Next is the second topic. Well, what's in this bike that was able to even do that 96 and still have at least what I felt like it was doing a lot of power? Well, let's talk about the drivetrain. So number one, again, the drivetrain that this man had, he was doing 125. We are sitting on a QS180 90H, and I'm so fucking excited to even say that, because same thing with Project SB. There just wasn't much out there on the QS138 90H. There was a little bit, it was a decent amount, but you really saw majority of everything about the QS138 70H, even the 70H V3. So to come out with a video with the 90H and be one to test it, and then be one to have the bike fully built, and I'm just going everywhere with this motor. So anyone who just wants to know what the motor can do, how it is just driving it, especially as a street bike, since everybody uses these motors majority for off-road vehicles like dirt bikes and ATVs, I was the one that was able to produce the content because not much other people was doing it. And I could say the same, but even more with this big ass motor right here, because the QS180 90H, it almost feels like barely anyone has it. So there's barely any videos on it. There's a decent amount of talk on it on like the Facebook pages and whatever other pages you might go on that are about DIY electric bikes, but there really isn't like much to see, videos to watch. So now that I have this motor, I'm gonna be able to produce a shit ton of content with y'all, because for the returning viewers, y'all know how it is. I build a bike and I try to ride it everywhere as much as possible. And for the people who are new, well, now you know. So of course, having a QS180 90H, we absolutely have to pair it with a controller that can match it. So we are sitting on the Far Driver 96 1800, okay? Yes, this bike is packing some serious goddamn power. So I currently had it set to, I have it set to 88%. It was set at about 100. Well, I was doing 1800 phase amps, continuous and max. And I didn't mind doing that because I knew that gear 3 is really just a fun gear again. I don't need to always be in gear 3. I highly doubt I would always need to be in gear 3. Gear 1 did 71 miles per hour. Gear 1 is not the most torquey, but after a few seconds on this long road, the same road I just showed y'all clips of me doing 92, where it goes up the hill next to the mountains, that road I did not 71 miles per hour in gear 1. And it probably could have gone a little faster. I was just be coming at the end of the road, so I needed the brakes to turn. So gear 3 just being a fun gear, I didn't mind it. And I also had the amps set at 700 continuous and 700 max. But weirdly, during that speed test, when I went to pull off, I didn't hit it. I smoothly pulled off. It had a phase overcurrent, or it had a weird error in the controller. I'm not gonna just slam it. Here we go. Okay, well, we just cut off. Phase current overflow protect? How has that happened? I've never had this issue before. Oh shit, and it cuts right back on. So I'll get to that in a minute too. That's a different topic, we'll get to that topic. But so I set it down to about 1500 phase amps continuous, and I think it's at 1700 max peak. So that's like the burst. Yeah, the burst, that's what I meant to say. Burst, boost, whatever it's called, can't remember. So for the amps, it's 650 continuous, 700 boost. So that's that. Now for the drivetrain, the actual chain sprockets itself, we're running a 13 tooth in the front and a 47 tooth in the back. So we got a decently torquey gearing setup. And now last but not least, one of the most important things to this entire drivetrain, and one of the things, of course, that was able to help me get this stupendous range of 74.80 miles. And that is this big ass battery in here. Holy shit.
So while I fix this apparent very loose bolt on my panel, let me show y'all this battery.
The battery, let's talk about it. So this battery, we're sitting on a 117.6 volt fully charged, 100.8 volt nominal, 88.2 amp hour battery. We are packing some serious battery right here, okay? So much volts you could goddamn, I don't even know. I'm not even gonna say that. We are packing a vicious battery here. So that is, for all the people who know a little more details about this battery, that is a 28 series, 21 parallel battery. And of course, again, using one of the best cells out right next to Samsung, if not possibly better than Samsung, the Molicel P32A. And I only say that because I don't know too much details. I just go with Molicel because they have more amperage.
And this is where I want to let y'all mind run crazy again, because if we go back to the drag bike, the man that did 125 in 10.2 seconds, the thing I didn't tell you about his bike is that, again, my battery is 117.6 volts fully charged, 100.8 nominal. His battery is 100.8 volts fully charged. So for anyone who may not know too much about this e-bike stuff or anything about the electric motorcycles, when it comes to the battery, the more voltage you have is actually always better. And it means good in a lot of things like efficiency, power, range, all that good stuff. But what's important right now is it also means more RPMs to the motor. Therefore, my battery having more volts than his battery, it allows my motor to push out more RPMs. And another thing I didn't say is that I also got the same controller he has, which is again this ND96 1800. So no matter what he tries to do to push more power, this controller is only going to do 800 battery amps. Therefore, at 100.8 volts fully charged with 800 battery amps, he's pushing about 80,000 watts. Or because I can get up to 117.6 volts fully charged, and no, the fully charged doesn't always last that long, but still, that means that times 800, I'm pushing out 94,000 watts. So yes, my bike is a lot heavier, but I'm also pushing a lot more power and possibly able to get more speed.
But anyways, that's the drivetrain. So now, I think it's about time I take the camera and we get up close and personal with this bike. So of course, as y'all can see, again, VT600, VLX600 Honda Shadow. Beautiful, beautiful bike. For the paint job, I want to talk about that first. The whole color scheme, all right? So for the color scheme, I was gonna go with something really pretty. Originally, I was thinking of like fully black with the blue accents and like trying to clean up these rims as much as possible. But then, for the people who haven't seen the video, my old bobber, it's a little wrecked, went through a crash, if I didn't say that already. And because I was building this bike, I'm supposed to be giving that bike to my mom. It needs to be repaired, but she kind of wanted to go with all black. So I'm like, you know what? I don't want to copy her scheme with, you know, doing all black. So then I was gonna go with this really pretty ass purple. This very purple that you can surprisingly get out of a goddamn spray can. I was shocked on how good that purple looked. But the problem with that was the more and more this bike was getting built and close to being finished, because the way I have to build my bikes, you know, I don't have the most professional tools and CNC machines to get these well-cut, laser-cut, you know, panels and shit. If you didn't see the build video, go ahead and check it out. It's a nice long-ass video where I'll show y'all from the ground up of how this bike started and how it ended. But as I look at the bike, you know, the way I have to do this stuff, and I'm still not a professional at this anyway. This is just my third build. This is my third build. It was really rugged, raw looking. So I'm like, I don't know if this pretty ass color is going to properly fit on such a raw, nice ass bike. I feel like I should go with a more raw color. And that's when just simply doing some Amazon searching, Amazon looking, because the original caliber to this bike was fucked. So I wanted to switch it out. I could have just switched out the lever and deal with it being a little dirty. You know, all this stuff is used and off of eBay. But I'm like, what if I just go to a different one? Because Jay, for all the returning viewers, you've seen the videos where I'll be riding around with Jay. When he had his Grom, he had these custom levers on his Grom that can be adjusted. And I started trying to find those to see if, you know what if I just completely switch out the caliber? And that's when I came across this caliber right here. And this color scheme on this caliber was just so sick. Now I know it's not quite the gray that this is, but through the pictures it looked a little more gray. And when they said it was titanium, I knew it was gonna be slightly off, but I didn't mind. This titanium grayish look with the silver and the blue. I'm like, that's fucking sick. That looks really nice. And then instantly clicked in my head, yo, that color scheme on this entire bike would be sick. And that's when I just said, fuck that, I'm going for it. It looked really, really nice. And here we are. And it looks really, really nice. Y'all let me know how y'all feel about the color scheme. Because again, I didn't want to copy my mom's feng shui because it was really gonna be all black with the chrome rims and the blue accents. But here we are. So of course, I had to get my mountain bike grips. Love these grips, easy to take on and off, and I can get the colors I want. You ain't gonna find blue grips like that, at least not the proper, nice looking ones like these for regular old motorcycle grips. Had to get the blue foot pegs. So for the foot pegs, I've been looking at these type of foot pegs for so long, and I would have loved to put them on the original bobber. I didn't see them at the time, but I would have loved to make the switch, but because my original bobber's foot peg setup was a lot different, I wasn't sure how I was gonna do it, so I stuck with the original foot pegs I had. But this, since this was my new bike, I had the time to plan how I could set this up. Found these, which are to a Harley, they're really supposed to screw in. Found out that I could weld them, they're not aluminum. A lot of this stuff will be aluminum, like this foot peg itself. Able to weld it up, just came out perfectly. And these are actually the original little mounts that would go up here onto the frame. I was able to re-weld them and mount it up to the motor because I want to do this mid foot peg style. And then for the brake lever, I was going to keep the original one spray painted black, but because these stick out so damn far, I should have cut it down. I mean, I don't mind it too much, but these stick out really far. These are really wide foot pegs set up here. I absolutely needed to get something that was a little longer to reach the same distance as the foot peg. And then, with that being said, of course, I had to do something different. These are the pegs that go on the front wheels and back wheels of your BMX for like tricks and shit, or for someone to just stand on the back of them if you're trying to bike with somebody on the back. And I thought this would be a sick design to have it hooked up to here with this, just doing something different again. Just this entire bike is different, so let's just add to it with these little accents. The blue is a tad bit off, but honestly, it still looks great. For the sissy bar, I honestly wanted to put a sissy bar on the original Project SB, okay? I really, really wanted to do that, but I just didn't know how to do it because of the way the swing arm was set up and the way the back of my frame was set up. I didn't know how I was gonna do it. With this being a VLX600, everybody loves the VLX600, at least if you're into motorcycles, cruiser bikes, and bobbers, choppers, you more than likely know about the Honda Shadow VLX600. So when I'm looking at builds of this thing and I see this sissy bar, I had to get one. It just looks so good. And if sometimes it was a mix of a dilemma because it looked clean without the seat and the sissy bar, but it looked really nice with the sissy bar. And let's actually talk about why at least a few of the main reasons I got the sissy bar, which, if I'm thinking correctly and I'm not forgetting anything, it's really only 2 reasons. Number one, it just looked good. Second, the reason I wanted one is because I don't know how super far off trips I'd be going where I'd need to take a break and carry some stuff, but I'm sure there'll be those moments because of this bike's range. I'm going to be going out even further, traveling distances, even longer distances with this bike. And in case I want to carry something, or because this really is my vehicle. I don't have a car. I used to drive my parents' Expedition. They sold it. We all kind of regret it. But it's gone, it's long gone now. It's been about 2 years. I'm thinking if I ever need to go to the store, if I ever need to go anywhere and I need to, I don't know, carry some shit that I'm buying off the store or whatever, hook up the bags, or I'll bring my book bag, strap it on here, bam. Oh, what the hell is that? I thought that was a wasp. I originally wasn't gonna put a seat on here, but I thought if I'm gonna sit hard plastic speaker, something hard like that, these roads get rough. I don't want that to bounce on my finger and mess up the paint job. So I don't want to get a seat that I can actually sit whatever I'm trying to sit on here, and I don't have to deal with that. So the seat is cheap, it's uncomfortable. I wouldn't want to sit back here, but you can. I really didn't get rear foot pegs because I just don't know who's going to be sitting back here. But you can put your feet on here. If for some odd reason I have someone who's consistently sitting back there, I could buy foot pegs, it'll work out. But it's not really what it's for. Speaking of seats though, this seat, love this seat. I absolutely had to get it because my original bobber, Project SB, that seat being a regular flat bobber seat, it wasn't uncomfortable, but sometimes when I want to play with that power, it always felt like I was going to slide off the seat. Probably never was, but it always felt like I was going to slide off that goddamn seat. So this seat still being nice, simplistic, but it has this. I can't pronounce it, so I'll just throw up a damn picture of the seat. A lot more expensive than this one, which I didn't mind too much because I don't mind paying for an expensive seat. I didn't mind going expensive for this entire build. Like, I'll get to that in a minute. But I didn't mind going expensive for this entire build. I didn't want to go cheap. So the other seat was going to get, it had an even taller one, but that was really, like, this is also for a hardtail, but that was also for a hardtail. And it having that even longer swoop, and then it's going to have to split because I'm not going hardtail, it would have looked a little weird. It wouldn't have looked as normal and neat as this. Well, I guess I might as well talk about, I would have loved to go hardtail with this bike, but I don't, I'll get to that in a minute. That's a part of topic 3. One small feature that I gotta talk about. that'll also explain the story of why I also went with another particular design. That'll also lead to a story of something that is absolutely important that you probably noticed about this bike, that you probably want me to talk about, especially if you're into the electric stuff. We're gonna get there, and that's talking about these buttons first. These buttons came from the ultra sweet design idea of wanting clean handlebars. Now I know I got this on here. I kind of don't want it up here, but we're about to get into that in a minute. The old little Tusk box, switch control box that I use for the Project Flash, for Project SB, the original Project SB, it's just ugly. It's really ugly. So I was looking at one that was a lot cleaner. It was all black, pretty thin. I'm gonna sit up there. But it turns out it only fit for a particular size of handlebars, which actually just reminded me of something else I'm gonna talk about. But they were too big, so it wouldn't fit. I couldn't find anything else like it in the design that would fit a 7/8 bar. And every other design or option was a lot smaller and sleeker, but it wasn't as clean because, you know, they had the ugly little green and red colors, the little buttons, cheap buttons, really cheap switch. I was scared it would break on me or just wouldn't work. And then that's when I came across these buttons right here. I'm like, you know what? These are sick. What if I make a mount and I mount them to the side? This design was super sleek. We got our buttons, and we're gonna talk about what those buttons operate in just a minute. Because I want to go back to the handlebars, the reason it wouldn't fit my handlebars, and you may be asking, at least someone as a VLX owner yourself, or you may not own one yet, you're trying to get one, and you've done mad research. You say, how the hell do you have 7/8 handlebars on here? You got different risers, and then you may see, no, these are OEM risers. Well, what happened here again, because if you didn't see the build, I'm gonna give you a sneak peek of what happened in the build.
So pretty much, long story short, I had these 16-inch ape hangers on my original Project SB, but I switched them out for some 10-inch silver handlebars because I thought the symmetry on such a small bike would look a lot better, and it did. But I wanted to save these 16-inch handlebars for a new bike, and that was this one. So when this bike was a rolling chassis in my bedroom, I slapped them on, took some pictures to see how it looked, and I don't know, the bars just still felt too big to me. And maybe that's because to me the bike feels full size because it's my biggest bike, but people will tell you this is not a full size bike. It's actually kind of small. And maybe that's why, but I didn't like them. But I bought some 1-inch handlebars that I liked, kind of fell off though, didn't like them too much anymore. I came across a lane split boulevard video, VLX600, that a man named Moneybag, and he had some 10 to 12 inch narrow ape hangers, and to me those looked beautiful. So I came up with the brilliant idea of chopping up my 1-inch handlebars using the middle piece for the OEM risers on the VLX600 and chopping up the rest of the 7/8 bars so I can use my 7/8 things like the mountain bike grips, the thumb throttle, all the necessary accessories, even the brake master cylinder.
But that leads back down to the buttons. I still want to do the buttons down here because everything else for the 7/8 bars was just ugly. And I thought this design not only would be clean, it would be sick as hell. So now that's the question. What do these buttons operate? Well, this button right here, not only do they light up blue, that operates our headlights and tail lights. Yeah. The top button operates our low beam, high beam. Yes, sir. Okay, one thing to mention, has nothing to do with those buttons, but Project Flash and Project SB, original Project SB, did not have brake lights. Well, it had a light, but it didn't have the brighter brake light when I hit my brakes. So now that's officially set up, so we actually have brake lights. So I've never had anyone almost rear end me, but just in case I did and I didn't know because I didn't hear it, see it, I definitely shouldn't have that problem now, because now people will actually know when I'm braking and not just see me slowing down and they hurry up and slow down. So that's nice. But back to the buttons, those do that. This button right here operates water cooling. Yes, this bike is water cooled. And like I said, if you're into the electric shit, and you don't always see a water cooling on these DIY electric bikes. So if you paid attention to what's going on down there, you would notice the water cooling. Yes. I got a 240 millimeter PC fan radiator up here. The fans are in the back, so I can take these 4 screws to pull this out and access those fans, guarded by some grills. I also want to get some dust filters in case I'm out here with sand, rocks, but this is really to protect from rocks, so this should never get dented up by any small pebbles that might come out of these grooves. Of course, our tubes coming out. The pump is in here. I want to make this special little box design just to have something that'll equal out to the tank that we're about to get into. Instead of just having this goofy little, it's a tan little pump. Instead of just having that hanging around, I thought this box would look cool, and I like it a lot. It does. And that's when we go back around to the tank. This is filled to the top. Tank in here, 1 liter. And how the flow goes, if I show y'all down here, shiny black tube between the tank and the box. Tube goes into the box. The water goes in that way, then it comes up the top, loops all the way around, goes to the radiator. Radiator's upside down, so I can have this style instead of having to come from here. That would have looked weird. Comes out that way. We flow to the bottom, up to the top from our 2 separate blocks. Now, quick pause. The reason I got 2 separate little blocks, I saw one big one off of AliExpress, but again, I was a little scared that there's a possibility if I order these, they won't come in. There wasn't much reviews. It felt like they were deleting the reviews, even the good ones. And I just don't know if I could trust spending $75, I think it was, to depend on that coming from AliExpress. You know, it just wasn't a really known seller, so it did not have much reviews. So I was a little iffy about it. Not only was it much cheaper to go this route, and yes, it has less cooling surface, but it was a little cheaper and it still works. It is sticking on by some, I forgot what it's specifically called, adhesive or thermoconductive adhesive silicone glue-ish type shit. It takes like 300 PSI to break it off. So goes into that block, comes out, goes into that block, comes out, and we refill the tank, and that's the loop. So yes, we are water cooled. I had to go water cooling. Original Project SB, original bobber, air cooled. Originally I had it in kind of that same front design, but completely closed off. So I don't know why I did that. I don't know why that would be a good idea, especially in this Las Vegas summer desert heat. The controller will overheat fast, and it was only 80 degrees Fahrenheit. So during summer, I wouldn't have been able to go nowhere. But I eventually put the controller back in that area on the original Project SB, or actually no, more back there, because obviously my suspension design was different. I put a fan on it, it worked, but even when I wanted to play with the power, it still got a little hot, but it worked a lot better, and I didn't really have overheating issues like that. But I feel like it was always still close to being really hot. And you know, I like to have my shit overkill, so nothing's ever struggling. So I had to do water cooling in this damn summer heat. On average, where I live now, because I'm no longer in North Las Vegas, and North Las Vegas is hotter than everywhere else, now I'm sitting, usually summer's about 105 to 108. Actually, you know, 108 to 109. Sometimes as low as 107. If I was still in North Las Vegas, on average, they get like, or no, not even North Las Vegas. A little further down is like 112, 110 to 112. North Las Vegas may be like 112 to 115. They'll sometimes get as high as 117. The last time I lived there, it was 117 degrees. So let's say I want to drive down there for whatever reason, or just being in Vegas, it's so damn hot. Summer's coming. It's only May and we already hit 92. It's going down a little bit, but it's gonna go back up real soon. So I need water cooling, especially with this much power. This shit gonna get hot. I don't know how much people had a overheating issue with the far driver controller, but I don't know how much people are in the desert with this far driver controller. So yes, this joint is water cooled, man. I went crazy with this build. I went crazy, okay? But what else is there to talk about? Oh, having to go with the blue accents. I'm mad. These little blue crown caps, sick. But you know what? I had got a goddamn crown cap right here. Very nice shiny silver. Didn't fit. But speaking of the cap, that's another cool thing that I almost forgot about. So I originally wanted to do this with the original Project SB, okay? But anyways, y'all already know where we're about to go. I went ahead and did it. Again, check out the build of this bike, man. Fantastic video. That's how we charge it. Yes, sir. That right there, honestly, to me is so sick. When I'm about to plug this thing up to charge it, that is so sick to be able to do.
Now, one thing I completely forgot to talk about throughout this entire review is, does anybody notice how clean this bike looks? If you don't know what I mean, well, I'm talking about the wires. Let me show you. So because I forgot to record this, I'm doing this in my garage right now. But if you look at the old bobber, the original Project SB, and we look at the wire management, obviously I thought about where I wanted to route the wires, but I didn't properly consider where I wanted to route the wires and how am I going to make them look clean. So over here, it's not too bad. We really only got two. And this is one of these should be the thumb throttle. The other should be the 3-speed switch. But if we go ahead and move to the other side, it's a whole nother story. If we look over here, we just have this nasty nest of wires everywhere, and no way to hide them. The best way I can do to clean these up is just simply zip tying them together so they're not so spread apart. But that's it. I thought about putting some sort of sleeve over them, but I said no, because just in case anything goes wrong with any of these, I can easily access the wires. I won't be able to if I wrap them all up under some tape or something. But regardless, even if I did that, it's still a bit of a mess. It does not look that great. It doesn't look good at all. And it didn't help the fact that originally the controller was up here, but of course if you continue looking at this thing, nowhere for it to breathe. We had this very small slit. I added a scoop, hoping it would help. It did nothing. So that forced me to have to move the controller back here, which made the wires even worse. Now we got all this clunky mess back here that wasn't originally here, but it's here now.
and it just does not look good. It's really ugly, really messy. And again, it's like this because I just did not consider how am I going to cleanly route these wires throughout this bike. I didn't consider it at all. For some reason, it never came to mind. So me eventually buying this Surron, and then a long time later, eventually starting to work on the new bobber, I wonder, how do I clean the wires up? How do these e-bike companies keep their wires so clean? You know what I saw? They make simple ways to route the wires that aren't too difficult, but keep them really, really clean. And all you really have to do is just hide it behind stuff. Hide it behind the stuff that's on this bike. Some of the accessories that's on it. So when I built this bobber right here, that's exactly what I did. As you can see, man, this thing looks so much cleaner. From number one, starting off with the handlebars, you can see it already works out better because we have a lot less. Again, we no longer have this ugly ass tusk switch, and it is still broken apart because, yeah, I was trying to figure out the wiring. So not having all that stuff on the handlebars, it keeps it a little cleaner. So our thumb throttle, 3-speed switch, and even the wires to the master cylinder are all zip tied to the handlebars, and they route down under the clamps. And just like our headlight wire and our 3 wires right here, they all go into the gas tank. So if anybody who's seen the build, and even if you haven't seen it, I'll throw up some clips, but anybody who's seen the build, you would know that when I built these sealing parts right here, before I welded them on, I drilled holes in the middle of each and every one of them. And because I didn't really talk about it, I'm gonna say it now. The reason being is because I could take these wires, hide them under the gas tank, and they'll route through here to the controller. And of course, every other wire that is not connected to the controller, our 12-volt system, like these buttons, our headlights, our tail lights, all the 12-volt stuff is down in the gas tank. So all these wires do is go right up here, right over the floor. Since I took the floor out of this gas tank, cut it open, welded it to the frame, and split the middle round piece open so the wires can go through there, hit the 12-volt, or I can't remember which side, but our 12-volt is somewhere over here, and the actual terminals are over here. And it's the same thing for the wire back here, zip tied to the sissy bar, hidden under the seat. You can kind of see it here, zip tied to the side of the frame. And under here where you can't see, right over the shock mount, there's a hole back there that was originally already in the frame, so I drilled a hole in this back panel. And that's also where the pump wires go, hall wires. The only wires that's really a mess on this bike is this clunky shit right here, because they decided to send me a motor with the longest wires that they had. And it's all as simple as that. Just look at the difference. And of course, if we go on this side, it is just as clean. If anything, it's cleaner. There's really nothing over there. And even if I were to add more, like one day I end up still adding a speedometer, it'll still route cleanly and neatly right under there. It's beautiful.
And one thing I also didn't mention in the video, as you can see, we have a much bigger bike now. This bike's pretty goddamn big. The original VLX600 is about 470 pounds. Well, how heavy is this one? Let's figure it out.
So we're 219.2 in the front. Let's see how heavy the back is. $230.2. So with the weight test being done in the front and the back, we got 219.2 in the front, and we got 230.2 in the back. So this bike is 449 pounds. Kind of around the weight I expected it to be, but more on the lighter side, surprisingly on the lighter side. So now it's time to get on to the last touch. And this one, I had to do it. So I got this idea right here from Mr. Central Driver. He was one of the first people I watched when I was looking at the Onyx RCR, aka the bike that got me really wanting to build Project Flash, my first bike, and saw that he put this cool California, obviously fake but cool California little license plate on the back of his Surron. So I'm like, you know what, let me do one for mine, the LOL gas. So that's inspired by Mr. Central Driver. I ain't watched him in a minute. So for the last topic, I kind of wanted to stand here and talk with y'all again, back in the third person perspective. And that is the comparison. As y'all notice, I've already been doing that a little bit, and that's comparing this to Project SB. Now let me get some things straight. I kind of feel like I forgot to say this. Number one, this thing's called the VLX600, right? I decided to call it Project ELX600, aka Project SB 2.0. Now, before we get into the comparison, I don't think I've ever said this. Project Flash, that name's a little obvious, you know. At the time for me, fastest anything I've ever been on 2 wheels. Little fast bikes, Flash. I never went into why or what SB stands for in Project SB. So now that we're here with Project SB 2.0, Project SB stands for square body. I wanted to call it square body because not only do I actually genuinely just love the square body Chevy pickup trucks, but obviously you know why I call this square body. I took its engine out, I kind of gave it a square body. So that's what Project SB stands for. Square body. So this is Project Square Body right here.
Now, a lot of times I kind of hate having to do these voiceovers. Problem is, I'm just absolutely not a one-take guy. I'm always forgetting my words, or I'm always non-stop stuttering. Even voiceover Molly has to constantly do a bunch of takes or still cut some stuff out because I just keep stuttering. But I'm going to go ahead and do that right now because this end part right here is longer than it needs to be because the comparison is simple between Project SB and Project SB 2.0. If you just have to go back one more time with Project Flash, even if I didn't destroy it and I knew what I was doing, Project Flash was a great bike. It's just not a good long distance bike. Rear suspension, which could be changed out, was too stiff. Seat was aight. And just the overall very low down kind of sports bikey position, not good for long-term riding, definitely on my bony little wrist. But Project SB was supposed to kind of fix all that. Go after the original style. I always love the cruiser bike, whether that be a bobber or a bagger. Kind of love the bobbers more. Sometimes I can't decide. Project SB was supposed to fix that, especially after my brother let me ride his McCarthy Beach Cruiser, his electric beach cruiser. That thing was great, and I knew I needed that, but full power. So when Project SB was built, got scanned with the battery, fine, I built my own battery. Controller got hot due to the little oven that I put it in, so I put the controller under my seat in the back where it can get some more air. But that just created more problems onto the problems that were already there. From number one, the build alone was so stressful. The actual going outside, you know, it's build. It's not always going to be the easiest. It's cold, it's hot, it's this, it's that. I'm being lazy, I'm tired, I'm hungry. But when I tell you the amount of weeks, months of research I was doing that was literally stressing me out from the time I woke up to the time I went to sleep was ridiculous because nothing on Project SB original is OEM. So let's name them by their real names. Project SB original, DT400. Nothing on the DT400 is meant to be on the DT400. From the forks clamps, the front wheel, the rear wheel. Obviously the gas tank and the seat, you know, that's where customizations come from. But the gas tank apparently was too big, even though it was a very, very small gas tank. So it created all types of clearance issues. So there's a dent in my front gas tank. When I turn, there is a clearance issue in the rear wheel, especially now that the controller is in the back. Nothing fits. The brakes, they're terrible. They work, but they're terrible. It's not OEM. It's a pit bike front brake. Shit, it's a pit bike front fork. Now, obviously having these problems during the build is going to start occurring when we hit the road. Now, I didn't notice these problems at first because I still barely ever went anywhere. I never went far. But we quickly started noticing the heating issue because temperatures just simply got hotter. And that's when I moved the controller to the back, which quickly created a clearance issue that I saw right away. Something I also kind of didn't consider, but I didn't know where else or how else to sit the controller. So I kind of just had to deal with it. But at this point, having the controller back there, not having a heat issue, and we can't forget not having scan battery, which is another thing that kept me from leaving my neighborhood, and having the new battery, I started going out just a little further. Nothing crazy, but just a little further. Same route over and over again. And again, the clearance issue, it was bad. It was really bad. Not only did I have to put my suspension to the stiffest option, I then still had a clearance issue. It didn't stop the tire from touching the controller box. And then after that, we met Jay. And that's where even more problems came in because, man, he wanted to go far, especially when he got his Grom, gas bike, you know, he can go everywhere. We started going out further, and I'm like, you know what, I kind of want to explore more. I've been in this damn city since I was 6. Yet this is the most I've been able to ever explore, and yet I barely do it, so let's start doing it now. So that's when I started noticing we have a front clearance issue, and it's just all going bad. We got clearance issues everywhere, and it's just really uncomfortable when you're driving on the road and your tires are hitting the shit out of your frame, and sometimes it makes you wobble a tad bit, and just the thought of that happening is like, is this going to make me lose control one time? Me and Jay was on the back roads, kind of going to Summerlin area. The road was terrible. It was so bad. But having this clearance issue, I bounced off the bike twice. The last bounce was so hard, I bounced sideways. I was sitting on one cheek. I literally almost fell off the bike, and that could have ended very badly. So again, just problems after problems after problems with this bike. I couldn't deal with it anymore. And that's when the VLX600 came in, which I wasn't supposed to build this bike. I was supposed to sit on the DT400, bought the VLX600 frame because it was at a very good price, upgrade my Surron, and then just leave it at that. The DT400, you know, it's still fun, still fast, good power, good looking bike. I'll sit on it for a while, and maybe when I get a little bit of extra money, I'll turn the VLX600 into a rolling chassis until I start actually feeling like building for it. But again, these problems kept irritating me, and I couldn't stop looking at VLX600 builds, to be honest. And the VLX600, in my opinion, just looks so much better than this bike. So I couldn't help it. I got money, and I started building. And obviously, the comparison is it's easy. It's a simple run through. From the research, all I gotta do is look for all the OEM parts, and bam, the research is done. From the build, I guess I could say that was harder because it's a bigger bike, so heavier motor and battery to move, even the controller's heavier wheels, much heavier frame, especially when the controller and battery box is welded onto the frame. But besides that, work is work. I do what I gotta do. Once the bike is done, we're on the road. My God, it's a breeze. No clearance issues, so this bike is ultra comfortable. Sturdy, doesn't feel extra janky due to a clearance issue. And of course, it being a bigger bike, that means a bigger motor and controller and battery again. So we got more power, way more range, damn near double, and more speed. Come on. And if you just have to talk about some extras, well, DT400 couldn't even have fenders. It having front pit bike forks, it had no mounting for a front fender. The rear of the frame was always very empty, so I wasn't sure how to make mounts for a rear fender. But now the controller box is back there, so I really can't install a rear fender. And let me tell you something, Las Vegas, the rain never lasts long. Weirdly, as of recently it has been, but usually it does not last long. The clouds break up pretty quickly, and you tend to get a very, very nice view when that happens. You get these thick clouds, sunlight's coming through. I want to get out there and record a shot. It's nice as hell. At least get some pictures. Well, you gotta ride around in some very wet ground. Not having fenders, the water is getting all up on your back. Front wheels throwing water all up in your face, especially with the wind. It'll throw the water in the front and then it flies right back into your face. Nasty as hell. Nothing I can do about it. And it's super annoying when the rear wheel is constantly throwing water somehow into the controller box and making sure it's always hitting the positive cable to your battery, which could possibly one day cause your battery to set on fire if your BMS decides to fail. So that's great. Where we got fenders. Now, I don't think I showed this, but I do have a front fender for the VLX600. I just don't know how to feel about it. Here's a clip. Here's how it looks. How do y'all feel about it? I'm not a fan of it, and honestly, it's not that hard to take off or put on. So if I ever have to ride after rain, I can just quickly put it on. And I guess one last thing, which this one could be switched out. Headlight. DT400, I don't know what happened, but its headlight fucking sucks. The headlight I got for it, not bright at all. Amazon reviews, everybody's like theirs was bright, but mine is terrible. I could not see at night. It was quite scary. Especially when I can't see what's on the road. If a pothole's so bad, I might fly off the DT400. VLX600, this headlight, beautiful, super bright. So again, this bike is just overall better. There is no competition. And in my opinion, it just looks 10 times better. Shit, we got spoked wheels. We got spoked wheels. Look at them. Now, I can't just say and act like this bike is just a straight up breeze. I am having a problem. It's a problem with the controller. During speed testing, both speed tests, I did come across two errors. One was a phase current overflow. The second was a throttle error. Now, the throttle error has never happened after it happened the first time. But the phase current overflow error, it keeps happening, and it happens when I hard accelerate. It happens when I'm in gear 1, which is only 25% of the bike, 50% of its phase amps. That'll get this phase current overflow if I fully pin the throttle down. So I don't know what that's about, but I'm assuming it's just a bad tune. I really can't blame it on anything else right now. Shit, I had to learn my Voto EM260 controller. That's the controller that's in my original Project SP DT400. And that gave me problems. That thing would cut out. It would work for 30 seconds and then just stop. So this being a far driver controller and this being my first ever far driver controller, I'm just blaming it on the tune. And to get the tune fixed up, there's a few Facebook group pages out there. One of them has a guy that really knows how to tune them. And if you give him a good fee, he'll tune the bike for you. So I'm thinking about paying him a good fee because I know nothing about this controller and it has a lot more settings in it that are confusing the hell out of me. And again, we do have to talk about that drum brake and the rear wheel. Kind of just remembered that whenever I need to change those pads, I gotta take the whole rear wheel off. Now this next one isn't a problem with the VLX600, it's just a problem because it's something I wanted to do, but it would create a problem that I don't want to have to deal with on the VLX600. A problem that's similar to the DT400. Well, what is that? That's the hardtail. I would so love to go hardtail with this project, but again, that would create the problem of this bike becoming very uncomfortable to ride, especially when the bumpy roads come around. And again, that would kind of slightly kill the purpose of this VLX600 right here, because again, the DT400 was supposed to be the comfortable bike after the kind of rough to ride Project Flash. But with its problems, it wasn't that comfortable. So to do that on the VLX600, that would kill one of its main purposes, which really sucks because I love how the VLX600 looks with the hardtail. To me, any bobber with that lowered stance looks so fucking good. And some bikes with suspension can pull it off, but I'm not so sure that the VLX600 could pull it off while still having suspension. Another reason why I did not go hardtail, at least not on this build, is because I don't know how to feel about all that rough riding and rattling on the battery. Its cell holders are cheap plastic. There's a lot of them, but it's cheap plastic. Now it is being held on by, I guess, the copper and nickel, a lot of tape, but I just don't know how to feel about all that rattling on the battery. And people already tell you, when you go hardtail, you have to check up on your bolts every once in a while with a regular gas bike, because again, there's no suspension. So a lot of rough riding on your parts that you have to make sure they're still good. So as much as I would love to have the hardtail, the lowered hardtail stance on this bobber right here, can't do it. But I'll have to see what the future holds. Space is becoming pretty limited, and unlike how I had this Honda shuttle frame sitting around when I was rolling on the original project, I don't really have an extra frame, at least on a bobber frame, sitting around. But if I'm to get one and I say, you know what, let's do another bobber build, I definitely think I'm going to try to go hardtail. And I'll figure out a way to keep the battery secure with either foam or something else, so it's not, bouncing around in a metal case. But I definitely think I want to try to go hardtail, man. I love hardtail bobbers. Which is funny because I used to like softtail bobbers better. I thought they looked better. But then eventually it started to depend on the bike, and then maybe it'll look better. And then eventually I just kind of like the hardtails better. Shit, sometimes I like struts better than having the shocks. And I think it's really just the stance. It's not always just simply the hardtail. It's the really low stance you get in the back. It looks so nice. But it's finally time to end this video here, and I'm really glad to say that, not because I didn't enjoy recording this video, and also not because I didn't enjoy editing it, but simply because after this video, it's time we finally hit the road. It's time to finally start traveling around with this bike. It's been so long. I'm ready to get back at it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I think this is where we finally end this here. I think I've talked about everything that needed to be talked about. I think I showed you everything that needed to be showed, from the power of the bike, what it can do, its range, the specs that's in it that allows me to have such power, to giving y'all close-up details of what's on it and why I put what on it, and then comparing it to the Project SB, the original Project SB. This video is long as hell. Hope you enjoy all these long-ass videos, but this video is definitely gonna be another long one. And yeah, I don't think I'm forgetting anything. So if you love this bike right here, well, best believe this is not going to be the last video of this bike. I'm going to be taking this thing everywhere, especially with the range it has now. We're going far. So I'm going to say it one more goddamn time. If y'all enjoyed this, make sure you like, comment, and hit that subscribe button to get electrified with the rest of the people and become electric with the rest of the people. It has been. Stay tuned for more. And me, I'm out. Peace.